So we are now live. I am on the Spotlight. We are back with Ladd Ehlinger Jr. and Mark Slater. Ladd is the director of the film Flatland. Mark is the sound composer of Flatland. And we're leading off where we stopped at last time.
Right, we're Colonel Triangle is giving A Square a hard time after some riots. And he's got his low point there.
Yeah, and the isosceles kind of went nuts.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, when they get going, they don't really know how to stop.
Is he confiscating that glow point now?
Just about to, yeah. We're trying to.
I got it yesterday before everything happened as a gift.
And that was not in the book either. I don't know where that came from, actually, that idea.
With the glow point?
Yeah.
It's a little bit of foreshadowing, isn't it?
You're right, a little bit of that, yeah. But also the idea of, it being a singularity, kind of adding to the oddness of, whether it's actually a point or not, a real point.
Mm-hmm.
So is that kind of like another allusion to another dimension, kind of like Lineland is?
Exactly, yeah. And here he is going back to get another one. With the all the dead people at the market.
That's right.
And he, feels bad about stealing one. And he gets home and his wife is all upset and
Tight as a drum.
worried about him.
Found it on the street. May be valuable.
And he's going to put that in the safe.
Dad?
What is it, Hex?
3 to the second power is 9. What is 3 to the third
Son,
power?
this isn't a good time for a math.
Which is very, very cleverly hidden, so nobody can find it.
Threaten me with attention.
Well, she should have. Geometry and the world have only 2 dimensions.
But why?
It's the way of the world. Last
What
night,
is
for
a
instance,
square, moving somehow parallel to
dream.
itself? What would it make?
It was very interesting with
make a
his kid
But there
in
are
the
Pentagons. Yes, they're pentagons.
in the Kristen Bell Flatland, which I haven't actually seen all. I've only seen clips of it.
I can't do anything right.
Apparently they made it a girl, even though girls in Flatland are actually supposed to be lines like A Square's wife. So I guess they took some liberties there. And here's A Sphere. Woo. That was actually a very difficult effect to generate. Yeah, it caused me a lot of pain. To do that in 3D, I kind of had to make like fake. I had to 3D model his interior,
But how did you change your
and
no circle I've heard of can do
so that you could see it as an intersection.
Right in here,
And
Flatland.
then of course his mouth opening and that sort of stuff was difficult too. So.
Called the World Flatland.
Did she?
And then I tried to make the radio realistic. It quite worked.
Mind.
Are you really a circle? I mean a priest?
Let's see, where are we?
Circle. Oh, yes, by all means.
The interesting thing is that with A Sphere, he's kind of, I don't know, with the whole CEO of Messiah Incorporated and all that stuff. He's kind of a racist. When he starts talking about you people certainly like your shiny things and all that sort of stuff. He's maybe not racist, but classist, or at least he has a feeling of superiority because he's got extra dimensions. And he's trying to do a favor for these lowly creatures. And so, and in a sense, he's trying to get A Square to be his prophet. And
I must feel you.
but then we added in some extra motivations for why he's doing this, which I don't spell out exactly in the movie, but the plot kind of hints at it, which is that there's some sort of a war going on in in the 3D world, and Flatland is sort of caught up in the middle of it. And so this is also partly his way of attempting to either get an advantage against the other side, or even prevent a war. So, which was not in the book, so we took some liberties there. But I think it adds extra to the film, to the storyline, and it makes him a little bit deeper than he was in the book, I think. Because in the book, he's strictly a supernatural creature in a sense, and you can still have. I think you can still have that supernatural. To my mind, anything that appears supernatural is just because you don't know enough about it, right? So, you're afraid of the thunder or lightning or something like that if you're, living out in the woods and, in a pre-industrial society. But when you learn more about what thunder and lightning is, it loses its supernatural spookiness or scariness. So,
I feel like it goes along with Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey.
Yeah, in a sense it really does. Ace is certainly not the typical hero, but he does follow that archetype of continually discovering new things and then kind of pulling back the curtain on them, like the Wizard of Oz or something, and discovering that maybe it's not as deep as possible. But then once you've opened it up, and you've gone behind the curtain, then there's another mystery back in there too if you end up staring at it long enough. And which is really the point of his revelation towards the end of the film.
You're wrong. Every educated person knows that women are really very thin rectangles, possessing complete two-dimensionality.
And there's something rather. I really love the bit when, to bring it to Mark, when he's actually taken out of Flatland, and Mark does this great piano bit. You know what I'm talking about, Mark? I can't remember what you called that musical bit that you did.
I can't remember either.
But it was really well done. And then yeah. And then there was the part. Well, you did two things. There was that sort of Mamba music, which actually after the film came out, I had tons of people writing me asking where they could get that music that you did with the horn.
Oh, really?
The ball. And when Ace Fear was all excited to show off his 3D world, which was just so much. That was so much fun to do that whole thing, and to finally break out of Flatland. To tell you the truth, it became, after a while, a kind of a claustrophobic experience. Animating them. Instead of doing, being able to actually do what human beings do and we'll see with two eyes, right? And actually see perspective and everything else. Gets to a point where you're like, God, I want to just, tilt the camera or do something. So it was, took a little bit of effort. And here's the cutaway.
Generals have reported back that we have successfully crushed the Chromatist rebellion. B Square. My friend,
President Circle.
B Square to thank for orchestrating the maneuver. B Square, you have saved our great republic. But I'm afraid our job.
And then having the camera roll around with him.
Even now, a greater threat that will emerge.
That's really
I
trippy.
think Phil Hall was a kind of a champion of this film. He was a good, great critic. Noticed that, of course, this is after 9/11, and so, I had a couple of things like, him saying "let's roll" and things like that, and it was interpreted as sort of, doing a parody of George Bush. But I actually think it wasn't so much being a parody of George Bush, but just being a parody of fiat authority. You know, where it's not even really, you know, thinking authority. It's just, okay, we're gonna, you know, just do whatever. And so no, it wasn't. I wasn't specifically thinking of any political person in general, because I think that would have kind of, what's the word, constrained the film too much if I was going to sit there and make fun of, you know, George Bush, because eventually he would have gone out of office and somebody else would come in, and there you go. And there's his Tempur-Pedic bed.
Yes.
It has space for his eye.
Right.
This cube has sides?
Yes.
But if you think about it, it's an odd. You have to wonder if they really even needed beds, but
How many sides?
the book actually mentions them being in bed, so you know you have to kind of come up with something.
Right.
And then here he gets all upset and wants to kill Asphere
6?
for bringing this revelation to him.
You're a monster! You devil!
You're driving me crazy.
What is wrong with your species? I see a brain, but when it comes to imagination, all you try and do is kill something. I can't.
That's the thing about geometric creatures; they can't. You can't move out.
No fool.
We're only allowed to appear in your world every 1,000 years. You've been chosen. I can't go change directions and find someone else now. There isn't any time.
I'm just an attorney.
Does the book mention the hairs and things on which they used to sort of propel themselves?
No, that was something I added
I would have to
to try and make it, you know, a little more realish. if not realistic, at least realish. You know, where it makes sense.
It's called a glow point. No, wait.
So yeah, I made the hairs and all that stuff, and the gears for the brains and that sort of thing. With the idea being that nothing can cost anything else unless they're in the 3D world.
Well, never mind. Here's your thingy.
It's crazy how Asphere, you can tell that he's three-dimensional compared to the square, but at the same time you can see the square's brain and all the details and everything else of him, but you can still tell the comparison between the two and know where each is from.
Yeah.
And a vandal. You fixed my glow point.
You people said
Yeah, and the hard part was actually dealing with A Square in a 3D world when he gets pulled out. That was kind of a difficult thing to do. Also,
I can see. Though of course,
you make them like floppy and stuff like that.
for example, now I can see your neighbor's house, and your
Yeah, you know, and then you gotta kind of imagine
banging against
it
its
being
side.
painful if somebody actually touched him on the inside.
I'm going far up. Buildings. Now I see the border between your country.
If I'd had more money, I would have had it so that the when they're moving around, you'd actually have like a particle effect, like they're creatures floating on water,
Oh, anyone can listen to the radio.
instead of just that fractal thing going on.
How about if I touch you?
Touch me.
Sure. Just a little touch.
Awake.
Gently.
Exactly, yeah, having a wake and all that kind of stuff. And, uh-oh. That was him being touched by this flashing light.
Just go. Go.
There's only one other thing to do. It's never been done before. I suppose I'll have to do it.
Do what? Murder me? You've done everything else.
Nothing of the sort.
Alright, bring him in the 3D world.
Could get into trouble, but I've got no choice if the gospel of 3 dimensions is to be revealed. Hang on, Apostle. 1, 2, 3. Out
There we go.
of Flatland we go!
And there we go. And there we go. Yay! So the idea was that they're in sort of like a volcano or something. And there's flatland all around them.
Kind of crater, isn't it?
Insane.
Yeah.
Lifted you out of flatland
And there's a sphere.
into reality.
In all its glory. It's in this sentient
There.
floating car,
Rest on your bottom hairs for a moment.
which obviously wasn't in the book at all.
Oh, the car is sentient, I see. That's why it has that kind
Right,
of
exactly.
dialogue
That's
at
just
the end.
gravity. Something we all have to contend.
Yeah, it gets all upset.
Nothing
Yeah.
to worry about.
Now that I see you, all of you, you're so
You never
perfect.
get to see the
Your
north, though.
circularity
I always wanted to see the
beyond
north.
circularity. Everywhere you're circular.
The armies of the north.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect. A divine ideal of loveliness.
Well, it was, sort of like going off of, Hamlet or something like that,
Let's take a look at where you've been.
where the bad guys, the enemies are, off and
You can
distant.
see your insides. I see.
I take it that my
The other issue was dealing with how does A Square be mobile
See yourself?
Myself.
in the 3D
How
world.
can I see myself?
So I had to come up with this little
myself.
weird thing that he's kind of, like a bird in a cage or something.
Here.
Right.
It's kind of like where they come out.
Hold them in kind of suspension,
No.
Right, exactly.
Reflection.
It's like the end of Willy Wonka when they come out of the top of the chocolate factory.
Exactly.
Thank you. Thank you for.
Which I much prefer the first movie
I see everything. Everything.
with Gene Wilder.
Yep.
I understand it all.
Right, yes.
And this was where that great music was that Mark did. So,
He can, he gets to see himself.
right. Which technically, it would probably be pretty hard for him to do that, or even see any of this stuff in 3D world with a one-dimensional eye. But I just at some point you kind of have to let it go. And here he is being explained that some things there's always going to be something bigger and smaller than you.
The sun. Let's not look at
Just
it for too
again
long.
dealing with the
How does it stay?
transcendence.
Just does. Our scientists say it is.
And A Square is sort of acting like being a child in the new world,
Smaller than you.
asking all these
That's just
questions.
perspective. The further away something is, the smaller it looks. But no, it's very, very large. Makes me puke.
No, I saw A Sphere as being kind of manic
You're
also.
a perfect circle.
A bit of a
divine in all respects.
psychotic creature.
Can't argue with
Yeah, he's a little bit. Well, he's very condescending in his spaceland as well, isn't he? To all his fellow beings.
Yeah.
Greater gods to worship.
There's always something smaller, and always something larger.
Actually, I find him very funny.
Are there beings even
He's actually my favorite character out of all of them, just because he's so flamboyant about things too.
What is that? Oh, and look at those glow points.
That is the moon, another sphere of great proportions.
That's sort of floating like they're on water or something.
Stars.
If only I could show this to my wife and my son,
It's rather
Hex.
expensive to pull someone out of Flatland. I'm afraid this production really can't afford.
So-
This is also, by the way, why I did the film in 3D, in Lightwave 3D, instead of doing it like in After Effects or something like that, because of
I
the
can see the insides of
being
all
pulled out of the 2D world and brought into the 3D world,
I see no brain, lungs, or
so that you could go and do all of these things.
My insides. Spacelanders are of a greater order than Flatlanders. I am a being of many circles, the many in the one. What we in Spaceland call a sphere. Don't worry.
It is kind of like they're walking on water right now, but isn't that Flatland below them?
Yes, and then the hover bike is floating over it.
Let's start with your house.
And then here we go. We're gonna go look at his wife from above.
It's me! I'm here outside the world!
Can't see you. can't hear you.
See everything. You've given me the eyes of God.
You can see what any fool in the world of 3D can see.
The Great Hall. Now that I'm in Spaceland, I can get past the soldiers to see if my brother is inside.
Now you're thinking in 3D. I've got business there.
Yeah, now he's gonna go over the crater. Oh no! Then he's gonna go see the President Circle. That's right.
That's right, and make his announcement.
There he is. Hey, B!
Right.
B!
Looks like your elite priests are gathering for the millennial meeting. Let's listen.
And then you introduce the priests.
The priestly cast. They have purple. Which I don't know why, but my dad can't stand the purple class, as he calls them. The royal purple and the priestly purples.
Your people can't write. Right.
Which, from what I understand, it was like a very expensive dye back in the Middle Ages, so that's why it became associated with royalty and archbishops and so forth. So, this is a sign of, here's our class. We're better than you because we can afford this dye.
It's 1,000 years between each visit. They can't blame me. It's not
That's
my
insane.
fault. Didn't you hear by your flat-headed brethren?
So I figured maybe the same thing would be operating in Flatland too.
It's so clear to me the nature of 3D. I could get a child to understand it. Put me down right now. I'm sure that I can.
I can't remember. Was it every 100 years or something? He's supposed to make this appearance. Or something?
Right, he's allowed to.
He's allowed to.
Time for reality
Right.
to intrude into Flatland.
So we just had a question asking, out of curiosity, what's with A-Sphere's pupils being at different points of dilation?
Yeah, well, it's partly an emotional thing, but it's also partly to kind of indicate how, creepy he is. Or when his eyeball, if you noticed right there when he was irritated, they kind of disappear altogether.
This one will be even simpler. The secret memories have predicted everything we have
Oh,
seen.
now you have the Praetorian Guard.
From another world.
That's right.
Was as our forefathers foresaw. The priestly circles alone remember how the same
The
occurrence
trapezoids.
happened on the last two millennial commencements.
How can you people be so smart?
Here he is trying to bring the
We're
gospel of
also
3D
required
to these
say
people,
nothing of
and
these trifles outside this cabinet. Call for the Praetorian Guards.
poor B square. I kind of thought of those creatures as like tanks. World War I
These
tanks.
soldier triangles must be put to death right away. All of them.
Their little tiny beady eyes there.
Ah, yes. We cut away. We just hear the screaming.
That's no trace, no harm. These are serious times, gentlemen, and must be met with determination and resolve.
And then President Circle. And of course all those other,
Council being over.
his minions are all terrified in the corner.
Yeah.
Attend
Cowering in the corner. Are we
B Square. I haven't forgotten you. My dear assistant.
And then, of course, B Square gets life in prison.
Should die. But since
All right.
you're loyal and, for the most part, if
Because he's so magnanimous.
you your life and grant you instead life imprisonment. However, should you ever mention
Yeah, that was the other thing
today,
about the positioning of people. In order for them to talk to each other,
and
one person has to be quote-unquote upside down.
Mr. President, I promise I won't say a word.
Right.
Not a word. Please, stop what you're doing. There really is a third dimension.
Give
Listen
it
to
up,
me.
Mr.
Let me
Attorney.
go back. Let me talk to him.
Don't have a lot
Please,
of time.
he's my brother.
Your brother is expendable.
With his eyes.
Round table, round table.
There's the
Round table. This is
Yeah,
Alpha
the-
Omega
the-
calling. Come in,
the
round
sentient hover bike.
This is Round Table. Over.
I'm on
It's
my
kind of
way.
ripping off Ridley Scott. He would
We hear
do that on various vehicles, add these funky little words.
Right.
Until then, cue the triumphant.
Here he goes. And the music for this is just so great. And there's his doubloons. So people end up falling off. Of course, Ace Sphere was like, well, I'm just going to keep on going. Hey, I'm the Grand Poobah coming back. And then he gets a police escort. Ace Square has no idea what he's looking at.
So in the book, Ace Sphere was more so, he didn't see himself as a god, but the square saw him as one.
Correct.
In this, is he more of a god?
In this, I think he's more of a wants to be a god.
Okay.
I don't know if I'd classify him as one. And then, of course, you have all of the protesters who want to destroy Flatland. And the police are going to take care of it.
Right. Just as intolerant.
What's going on there?
Oh, we put in Spaceland.
Yep.
Have our problem, children.
And here, have a doubloon.
Messiah.
Now he's big. His inside of Messiah Incorporated with his logos and everything.
It's for the children.
I kind of see him as kind of one of those people who turns off whenever the camera's off, right? He just shuts off and closes his eyes, and then all of a sudden he's in front of people again, and bam, he's smiling and happy. And then doing this traversing through all of his logos and everything. It was a very odd set.
I have to write an after action report.
And that The World Is Yours is actually from the original Scarface from the 30s.
Oh, okay.
He died on a big statue saying "The world is yours." But I thought it'd be funny to put that here since that's what Ace Sphere wants. He's sort of got a floating desk thing too.
Welcome back, sir. Welcome home. We're all so proud of you.
Of course, these odd little creatures,
Your manifestation a successful one?
his secretaries and stuff like that. I had one guy who could do like all of these voices. So all of the ones that sound like characters out of Hanna-Barbera cartoons or whatever. He's the one doing them.
Where did you get it? Did you bring it back with you?
A square? He's not a drawing. He's a flatlander.
Flatland.
So are the diamonds symbolic? Because that's what those shapes look like.
You were a cartoon
Yeah, they're sort of like a diamond-esque thing.
dog. How delightful. Isn't he cute, Millicent?
I think it's disgusting.
A cartoon?
You find him hideous.
Oh, yes. They're not very well. Smile for the camera, A square.
Is this allowed? No previous Messiah ever brought their chosen apostle back with
He's
them.
here, isn't he? And my ecom is now.
I'm going to take a picture of him, and then of course you've got the other issues of, the photograph leaking out and that sort of thing.
It's so
which causes Asphere a lot of heartburn as well.
Its time here is limited. Gravitational forces will kill it if it stays too long.
What?
If you ladies will see that I'm not disturbed for the next hour, after that, I want to meet with Mark.
Yes, sir.
Solid.
10, I guess, was making it a bit bewildering
And the last.
with all of the movement and the 3D structure around
You're not solid,
the giant.
because solid implies
All of the windows were intended partly to be spider webby as well, right? And there's Asphere, like this big fat spider sitting in the middle of it all.
Now here's a pack of cards. I put one down.
And he just pulled a square into his web.
Now a third.
Right, exactly.
I'm building a solid.
Where you can't really tell what the motivations are. A-Square's got no freaking idea what's going on.
Now, there. The solid is complete, being as high as it is long and broad. We call this solid a cube.
It hurts my
Of course, all of the cards have got his logo on them.
Shadow, perspective. You're not used to it.
Yes, sir.
Send in a cube.
Which one?
Anyone.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to let you feel a cube. That'll help you understand solids. Let this Flatlander touch you.
You've got the squares and so forth.
Don't worry, it won't hurt, and there won't be any side effects that we know of. Dean is
And in-
isn't it?
Go ahead.
In Spaceland, wasn't the case system the complete opposite?
A square, you may feel D.
Wasn't the what?
Sorry?
The case system? Like how it was like the isosceles and then it was the squares and then the pentagons to the spheres? Wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like they...
Well, spheres are obviously going to be, top of the chain and to a certain extent, but it's not quite as. I didn't see it as rigid as in the Flatland based on geometry.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But there was still certainly more of a. I saw it as more of a worker employee type of relationship going on. So it was closer to resembling what our world is like as opposed to the Flatland world.
I am a part of this. Oh,
Where if you're born into a place, that's pretty much where you're gonna go, but in Spaceland, you have a chance to get out of where you're at.
Right, exactly. Which is why you've got all of the advertising and everything else.
you're part of the sphere of 3D, but might I be granted a look at your
I don't even want to know what our fourth dimension looks like.
stomach, brain,
It's probably pretty creepy.
a light
Um,
overwhelmed me, and
Yeah, and then you can even see the breaking news in the background while they're still talking about stuff.
what I saw, or
Flatland invader.
or felt was that a dimension greater than was
Picture a square.
Just as I am to you, so must
That's the
you
secretary
to someone
taken.
else. If your dimension is greater and purer than mine, then there must be a fourth dimension even greater and purer than yours. Oh, good friend, philosopher, priest, don't you see what you've taught me? Some yet more spacious space, some more dimensionality lies beyond this one.
Time's short. We've got a lot to do before you're fit to proclaim.
Of course, Acer doesn't want to hear about other dimensions beyond
In the
his.
first place, your request makes no sense. In the second place, I can't turn
But
myself inside
that
out.
whole part of the book and part of the movie makes such complete sense, because if you were somebody of a lower dimension and you were actually shown what the higher dimension was, then you would obviously try to aspire to go to the 5th, 6th, 7th, or 8th dimension. But when you're Asphere, the one showing somebody below you what the higher dimension is, and you don't know of a higher one in your own mind tangibly, what do?
Right. Well, and it does. It's sort of. He wants to think of himself as the highest of the high, right? So he would obviously get insulted by that sort of thing. Preposterous, how could you possibly say that I'm not the highest form? So yeah, that's the motivation there for him.
Here in Spaceland.
madmen, the usual visionaries, delusions, brainstorms. Nothing worth writing about.
The other difficult part was dealing with time in this system. You know, we've already gone through a day and a night,
Written by the deluded, mentally sick brains.
Well, maybe they come from.
and we're now going into the next night.
Sorry, sir. The board of directors are here.
We've got a
And then here
problem,
now they're coming in to tell them that
Income was leaked to the public.
about the breaking news and so on.
Public opinion is against us.
You know, you're going to be thrown into
Terrible mistake.
this big trial at the
There's a
Senate.
hearing in the Senate chambers going on right now. The Zeros are winning. We must do something. Your cartoon thing has been subpoenaed.
Another big issue was trying to figure out how all of these creatures end up moving around in Spaceland. So, you know, sort of a, you know, just, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're just going to have them all floating on these little platform things
No pressure, but the Zeros
instead of, you know, working out their locomotion.
political factors.
So
I mean, could have given them legs and all this other thing, but
They
then
think Flatland's an abomination
Yeah.
wiped out. What?
it just adds complexity when you want to have it be a more pure kind of movement, you know.
Gospel of 3D. They think
So did putting them all on platforms give them the same laws of movement?
anything stupid.
Well, they can move in 3 dimensions, right? Instead of having to clamber around and so forth.
Yep.
And there's the Great Senate.
He does not look happy.
Do you mean to tell me, Mr. Sphere?
Just call me A Sphere, Senator.
I'll call you what I like for him. Do you mean to tell me you took it upon yourself to bring this disgusting creature into our world without any oversight?
It was a split-second decision, Senator. Our company.
And is this different from the book as well? Because I thought in the book that he got tried in Flatland.
Correct.
And these simulations.
Correct. Well, and of course, they didn't have television or anything.
Well, yeah, but
But no, the trial was actually in Flatland, and A Square was, you know, basically thrown in prison.
A computer simulation is only a simulation.
Here, I thought it would be more interesting to have the trial actually happening in Spaceland, and have the consequences applying actually to A Sphere, and not A Square. I mean, A Square has consequences too, but they're not legalistic.
All the scientists are not the ones on trial here. Not yet.
Of course. I yield the floor to my distinguished cubic colleague.
so A Sphere is kind of like the renegade vigilante in a way, because they're telling him not to bring any Flatlanders in, and he's bringing them in anyway.
Right.
I'm sorry, your senatorness.
You know, it's all part of his, you know, manic, you know, I'm going to save everybody
It's just his whole world you're standing in.
attitude.
He's just arrived here. He doesn't know anything yet. It isn't right.
Even if it costs him himself.
You are excused
Yeah.
while we interview this witness, and take your board of directors with you. Guard.
I kind of almost saw him as a gambler.
Pixay on the fourth dimension.
What did you say? What did you
Remember, you're an
And
attorney.
they kind of just take him away.
Disasters here. We're going to hold an emergency board meeting and elect a new CEO. Oh, the shareholders, the shareholders. Now, Mr. A Square, let's ignore the media here. Let's ignore
Now A Square is wondering what's about to happen to him.
You know what's at stake. Tell me
Yeah,
what's
and then he's having his
why we should
odd little breakdown too.
Why should Flatland
Where, you know, maybe something in the 3D world is not,
speak into the microphone?
you know, he can't really survive very well for very long in the Spaceland world.
Up right, please. Yeah, you there, you diamond there. Yes, lift him up, please. Answer the question, Flatlander. Why should Flatland have a
You're
container?
going to lean him up against the cup. with the logo.
In order to turn a circle into a sphere, rotate 90 degrees the circle.
Because, every Messiah has to have a logo.
Thus, a circle becomes a sphere. So in order to make a sphere into a hypersphere,
Did Jesus have a logo?
rotate spheres within spheres.
Did Jesus have a logo?
Well, one could argue that the crucifix was one.
True.
And of course, Buddha has, the Buddha statue, the sitting Buddha, is sort of a logo. Confucian, you've got the yin yang symbol.
That is true. Because the more and more I could think of, the more and more would have logos. And it's like, you could think of less without them.
Or something that, of a logo function.
Yeah. Something that can quickly reference you to who they are.
I voted against using Messiah Ink.
And we do that, we reduce things down to, visual markers and so forth. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to, get up out of bed. You have to, reduce the world around you to something that's comprehensible.
It sounds as if you are incapable of understanding the gospel of the three dimensions.
So, you have flags and logos and symbols. And you see his eyes starting to swirl around a little bit.
Surely you as great divine solids can
from the effects of being in Spaceland.
There is always something beyond. There is always.
He falls off the.
I can only imagine how disorienting that whole experience would be, though.
Are you all right?
Yeah, well, imagine being in 4 dimensions and trying to deal with being in a trial and all that other stuff. And, it's like his insides are starting to
Are you okay?
What's the matter with it?
It's gravity. He must return and
pull apart on him. And then this was interesting. I kind of saw it. This guy is like the president of the Senate. Even though he was more of a statue, but I thought he would be like super old. And there's Flatland. There's A Square completely messed up now. That's why all deformed and disfigured.
He's like, I didn't ask to come here.
And then Acer has got him again and is going to bring him back home. I always found the concept of air raids and the air raid sirens as being just terrifying when I was a kid. Because from, Godzilla movies and World War II movies, about the London Blitz and so forth, all of that stuff, for some reason really got to me. And I guess it was because of the random nature of the death and destruction of it.
Well, anything like that's kind of disturbing. Like when you're driving down the road and you see blue and red lights coming behind you, or you hear the siren from that, or an ambulance or whatever else, you immediately think, oh man, what's happening? So I feel like it's the same way with like air raid signals and anything else that you can think of like that might try to alert you to something.
Mm-hmm.
Smoke detector, anything that gets you going like, oh man, what's happening?
Yeah. And then, of course, growing up in the Cold War and hearing the air raid sirens going off, you'd be like, what? We have to duck and cover.
Hide under your desk.
Yeah, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, so it was kind of tailoring off by that point. But
good luck teaching the gospel of 3D.
No, please don't.
And then part of the issue here was trying to figure out how to get him out of.
I'm afraid I won't be
stick him in an envelope. and then, put him in one of those little banker tubes.
Wow. Send him back down.
Ignorance is bliss.
There you go. And of course with the Messiah Incorporated logo.
Interdimensional postal delivery capsule.
Please don't send me back.
That's great.
And then there goes Ace Fair, and you can see his insides. And of course you have to have like I just thought it was kind of a bit of a fun. You have to have like a big explosion ending, like a James Bond movie or something. Get away from the whole. You got time to blow up the whole set, right? So it's kind of the read here.
Everything but the people.
Yeah. With the flames looking at him. Going back to Flatland.
What's the music at this point? Is the music still the Siegfried funeral march?
Yeah, well, it's just about to start. And there it goes to Flatland.
No fly zone.
Yeah. And there's the angry floating sentient thingy. The 7 stages of grief. Some like blocking A Square's way. A Square's way. Almost kind of ended up thinking of it as like a shark. An angry shark.
Yeah, but the juxtaposition of both worlds is pretty insane, to be honest. Because right now, you can fully see the depth of what's happening. It's kind of like going through an abyss, but you're coming out, 2-dimension, not 4.
Yeah. And of course the danger of it, being crushed.
Or being pulled totally apart.
Yeah. And there goes the letter.
There he is.
Completely falling apart. And he falls down. And this is where the music really works. Kind of falls through.
You're below Flatland.
And this is where it really is. The music really comes together for this section here. with all of the formula, math equations, and so forth, which I spent a lot of time looking up and copying.
It looks like he's traveling through the Aether or the Akashic record or something, and then there's an infinity symbol.
Yeah. Which is really a terrifying kind of a concept, actually. Infinity. There's a Louis Borges saying that there's nothing worse than the idea of an afterlife that goes on forever. Now, one thing a lot of people don't notice is that he put back into Flatland backwards. With his eye facing the opposite direction from where it was originally.
I didn't notice that. Yeah, it's clever.
And of course, he's all upset that he's been delivered back to Flatland. Like, there's nothing worse than achieving some great thing, which I guess going to Spaceland would be, and then being dropped back into this dull little world.
And you can't tell anybody you're going to jail.
Yeah.
All such apostles of the three dimensions shall be imprisoned and executed 3 days hence.
Tell your mother I'll be back. Tell her I had to go see your Uncle B. Dead.
Going past the market. Everybody's still dead. Nobody's cleaned up yet.
Halt! Who goes there?
I'm A Square, attorney at law, here to see my client B Square. Allow me to pass.
No
in the name
one
of the
is
law.
allowed in. Get out of here, you pest!
A Square! A!
Mrs. B, are you okay?
There's all of B Square's kids.
Hello, children.
Children, go play off to the
A
side.
Square is a pimp.
They're the only ones actually that notice that he looks weird. That's why I kind of had him back up like that.
What's going on,
You
eh?
need to get in there.
And his
I
wife.
have to talk to your husband. Can you
Yeah.
distract the guard?
You bet your south side.
Look out! Look it's a woman!
Watch it, buddy. Hey! Mr. Suicide, what are you doing in here?
I'm here to see my client B Square. Allow me to pass in the name
Colonel
of the
Triangle
law.
hard ass.
Law? What? I was sworn to protect the law, the Constitution. They tore it into pieces yesterday. I'm a soldier. They have me guarding a bunch of civilians. I should be in battle.
He's my brother.
Brother, huh?
Yes, sir.
5 minutes.
How did you know I was here?
I saw it. I saw what happened. I saw them.
You see, they don't have to be upside down to talk to each other.
Or something?
No. I was there. Sort of. I was in Spaceland looking down onto Flatland and saw President Circle arresting you.
Or actually, there is no upside down in Flatland, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
All I have to do is explain to them.
Coming up to my favorite line in the movie.
Not north,
Which one?
not north, but
He's a proselytizer.
on top of. I should have remembered all of the words, but I was distracted and beside myself. I was sick, but listen, B, there's another dimension. There's a third dimension, and I'm here to spread the word. What? Are you mad? You're a monster. You're gonna get us all killed. Where do you die? Die!
The infinite in the one. The infinite be the truth of existence. It is, and there is no other besides of the infinite in the one. The infinite be
Of course, the little
existence. It is, and there is no other besides. Cloudland of metaphysics, the universe.
The point land.
Cloudland of metaphysics, the unity that exists.
Thus speaks the
Well, since A Sphere is dead,
That final universal.
you can see his insides.
Listen to that babbling. Can't you stop it?
Give it a try yourself,
And the point land creature, of course, thinks that he's the everything.
monarch of Point Land to a higher dimension.
Okay, no problem. Hey, P-Brain, listen to me. You're not the all in all. You're the nothing of nothing. Your so-called
Going back to the idea of, perception and what you can,
This is nothing compared with.
what can you perceive and how does that affect your actual existence itself?
No nobody's home.
See the difficulty you'll have in your own world?
That's true.
The
Some people
monarch,
never
in
leave
as
their
far as he
hometowns.
hears you at all, accepts
Yeah.
your words only as his own.
Or, you know,
Loses himself in the variety of the great one's
some people
books.
suffer from oikophobia, you know,
Is omnipresent
which is
and omniscient.
basically, you know, the
Truly he
contempt for
is
one's own
the
hometown.
monarch of Point Blank.
You know, like, I can't wait to get out of this town, you know, that kind of thing.
Yep.
You've not much time left.
Just extremes in both cases. It's like the guy in Pointland can't see past his point, and you know, Ace Spear can see 3 dimensions, and he still thinks he's the center of the universe.
Yeah. Then Corey wakes up from the being knocked on the head.
He's mad! B, what are you doing? B, what would our dad say? Our dad was a triangle!
What do you want? Are you finished in here?
Yes, I've nothing more to talk with my client about today. Thank you.
When we first released the movie, we didn't have closed captioning for it, and so we ended up we had a very nice lady write to us saying that she wanted to see the movie, but she was deaf and she didn't, you know, couldn't tell what was going on. So I sat down and actually made the closed captioning myself, and there's a point with A Square's wife deciding to use her war cry to save him from being, you know, captured by the soldiers, and we would do things like, you know, that's the worst noise in the world and stuff like that, and it was actually very challenging. I have great respect for people who can do closed captioning, because it's not an easy thing, especially the timing, so that, you know, when you hear dialogue, you know, it naturally flows in your ear and so forth, but then when you end up putting it up on the screen and flashing it around, it's hard to determine when you take the text down, when you put the next text up. What if 2 people are talking on top of each other, overlapping dialogue? So there's definitely an art to the CC stuff that I didn't realize before.
Keeping everything in sync is definitely a hard thing, and then on top of that, how many words can you put in a line so it doesn't stack or triple stack or whatever else?
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes you just have to abbreviate it. But then we ended up having a bunch of people actually sending me translations of the movie. I ended up getting the French translation, a Spanish translation, and Russian one. Just people just sent it to me out of the kindness of their hearts. So I ended up putting those in there and just hope that they're right and maybe put something in there wrong. Oh, and German too. German, French, Spanish, Russian, you know.
So you had the movie translated in 5 languages?
Yeah, on the DVD.
Wow.
You went that way, north by northwest.
Well, on the second edition of the DVD.
So the movie's definitely has an international fan base.
I guess.
That's amazing.
But mostly, what really surprised me was how many math classes ended up showing it. I guess it was because of the book itself, which was sort of a big thing for them, you know, for math teachers.
No, please. I'm not.
And of course, all the, you know, now the war is starting.
My destiny fulfilled. War!
And this is when I think what I was doing was having the entire universe starting to fall apart on him.
And I feel like when you seen his body changing when he was in front of the Senate, that was an allusion to this.
Yeah, the foreshadowing of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then greetings A Square. Like he's gotten someplace else. Sonic markings.
Historical means.
So, well, there you have it.
And now it's like the cucaracha, isn't it?
Yeah. Which, may or may not have anything to do with the movie thematically.
Well, I found this quote in an Incubus song, but it's from this guy, he's a philosopher, Buckminster Fuller. And it kind of, goes with the movie and the book. And it says, up to the 20th century, reality was everything humans could touch, smell, see, and hear. Since the initial publication of the chart of the electromagnetic spectrum, humans have learned that what they can touch, smell, see, and hear is less than 1/millionth of reality.
Yeah. Buckminster wrote that?
Yeah, it said Buckminster Fuller.
Interesting.
And then to go on to it, it says 99% of all that is going to affect our tomorrows is being developed by humans using instruments and working in ranges of reality that are non-humanly sensible.
Yeah. And then, you've got Einstein as well with basically his thought experiments. And, Hawkins and all the rest of them too. So, where even there are certain realms that you can't even quantify with instruments. So interesting. But anyway, I guess that's anything else. Any other questions?
Oh, no, that was amazing. Thank you so much, Mark and Ladd, for joining me again for part 2. That was a really good time.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thank you very much.
Yeah, long live independent film.
Yes.